Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Max and Trev with BuzzTox here, and we're back with a Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 3 breakdown. What's going on, Trev?
Not too much.
Cool, man. Yeah, looking at this episode, I really liked it because we got to see Jon and Daenerys finally together. And I think it might be my favorite of the 3 episodes. How are you feeling about it?
Oh yeah, by far.
And as we get into it, I realize that there's a lot of things in this episode that kind of disproved some theories for me. So, like, I'm kind of nervous about the show going forward, but I hope it works out. But we'll see what happens. But let's get right into it. We start with Jon arriving right at the shores of Dragonstone. He's with Davos and a bunch of Stark men. They're greeted by Tyrion, Missandei, and some Dothraki. And then we get a nice, reunion between Tyrion and Jon. They make a joke about being bastards and dwarves and the scars that they've gotten along the way. And they end up taking their weapons and they escort them up to Dragonstone. Davos tries to speak to Missandei, but she kind of shuts him down. Like, she's not participating in the small talk at all.
No. She doesn't want to give him an in.
Yeah, and I think that this is a taste for what we're getting for the rest of the episode, is that they're being cold as fuck to Davos and Jon, because it's almost like a dominance move, right?
Oh yeah, pure power move. They don't want to give him, or any of them, any foothold.
Yeah, and it's funny because they're like, she kind of needs them as allies now, knowing the position that she's in. But she's starting off so cold, and it's like you can tell it's a calculated way to handle the situation. You have Missandei being very cold and straightforward, and then when they finally make it up to the castle, we see even more of that. But before that happens, as they walk, we see Tyrion and Jon share a scene together. They're pretty much talking about Sansa. Tyrion wants to tell Jon that's an unconsummated marriage, pretty much making sure that, they're in a good place.
Yeah.
And Tyrion tells her that she's smarter than she lets on. Jon says that she's starting to let on, which really foreshadows Sansa and how she's been at Winterfell. She's kind of calling out Jon at every move. But then pretty much we see Drogon fly by Jon. It's the first time Jon and Davos see a dragon. So overall with this scene, I just like seeing Jon and Tyrion catch up, and then hopefully we get more scenes between Jon and the other dragons.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too.
But a very interesting scene. As this is happening, Melisandre is watching them climb the steps.
This is a really good scene.
And Varys ends up confronting her, and that's the biggest mistake I think he's ever made.
Yeah, in a while. He was confident going in, not so confident going out.
I know, you see him slowly get more and more destroyed.
Did you watch it again, like I said?
Yeah, what I miss?
His face is like classic. There should be a gif of his face. Going from like smug to shocked. It's so good.
Yeah, so he's giving her a hard time, and she says that she's played her part because she's brought ice and fire together. So she's pretty much saying get off her back because she doesn't want to be in between the interaction between Jon and Daenerys.
Yeah.
But that just goes to speak that, she's not ready to claim on who the savior is, or if the savior is one person, or if the person is male or female.
Yeah.
And I think I know your opinion,
they
but
really left it open.
What do you subscribe to in this whole thing of prophecy?
They're just covering their tracks to try and make it seem like anyone's still up. It's still up for grabs.
But I guess right now you're in my camp, that is Jon Snow.
Yeah, I would say I'm 95% sure it's Jon Snow. And I have been since the start.
Okay, and then the other 5 goes to Daenerys, I'm guessing?
No, the other 5 is like, it's not just one person.
Okay.
It's like the destiny of everyone. It's hard to explain, and I won't go into it here, but I just think it's like everyone has their place on the board, and all of them doing exactly what they have to do in every situation would end up being the final result. Like they all have their destiny and they can't avoid it. That's why Jon got brought back to life. That's why what's his name, Beric Dondarrion, keeps getting brought back. He has to be there in order for the sequence of events that are going to happen and have happened now fulfill the destiny going forward. It's all like fate, basically.
Yeah,
to sum it up.
So she seems to think that fate is bringing ice and fire together, but
yes,
little does she know Like, she may see all of these visions, but no matter what vision she is shown, she doesn't know that Jon is actually both ice and fire already. She already found ice and fire. She never had to bring them together because it was in one person. But she doesn't know that.
Well, that's what I get from her character right now. It's almost like she's at an impasse with her faith. She kind of just let go of it after Jon died, and then was kind of half revived, I want to say, when she was able to bring him back.
Yeah. Because
she just thought she was so wrong.
Yeah,
she just got it so wrong, and then something happened that was right, almost telling her you were on the right path, but you interpreted what you saw wrongly.
And in season 6, when she brought Jon back, she's like, someone has to be the savior. But like, I feel like after what she's been through with Stannis, I think in her heart she thinks it's Jon, but she doesn't want to commit to him like she did Stannis because she doesn't want to ruin it. And
well, yeah, like she went all in on Stannis, literally, to girl-killing measures. So that's what I mean. Like, she seems so cold-hearted that it really does seem like she feels guilty for what she did.
Yeah, and she states this pretty much, that she's done whispering in King's ears. And Varys goes on saying, I doubt that. Because the common people want more and more power. But, you know, she states that her and Varys are no longer common folk.
Yeah.
And she explains why she can't be seen with Jon anymore, because they left on bad terms. And she said that she's leaving for Volantis. Why the hell, I'm going to put you on the spot, why the hell do you think right now she's going to Volantis?
Well, I might be mistaken, but Volantis is like the Vatican City for her religion, is it not? Like, it is like an epicenter?
I think that's a Shai.
So a Shai is like the center of all the religion?
I'm pretty confident, yes.
Oh, so then it blows my theory out the window. Because I thought she was going back for like a pilgrimage to where her religion originates, so that she could get real answers and atone for what she's done and maybe get right with her interpretations.
But really, it's like, who knows? Volantis, we saw Tyrion in Volantis. He went with Varys, and that's where we saw a red woman preaching about Daenerys and how she was going to come and with all the people, and she ends up, as she's talking, stop in mid-sentence and focus in on Tyrion, almost showing that he has a part to play. Yeah. So the religion is very prevalent in Volantis. So I'm just curious as to why it's Volantis. Why not Meereen? Why not a Shai? The reason she's going to Volantis is kind of confusing to me, so I can't really explain it. My best explanation is kind of like you. There's more red priests in Essos, so she wants to bring more fire, in a sense, to combat the ice, to spread the religion.
Yeah.
Because the only red followers is the Brotherhood, Beric Dondarrion and Thoros Emir. That's the only group of people that we follow that religion.
Just as we're chatting, I just looked it up. It says the Temple of the Lord of Light is located in eastern half of Atlantis, and according to the Archmaester Grayman, it is about 3 times the size of the Great Sept of Baelor in King's Landing.
There you go.
There is like a big ass. I don't know if that means it's the epicenter, but it definitely means there's a big ass church or temple, if you will, there.
Now I look like a dumbass.
Well, no, I just want to make sure, because it doesn't say specifically this is like the Mecca for their religion, but
yeah, no, that's
it seems
good.
Like there's a pretty big thing there.
That makes a lot more sense then, and it backs you up.
Well, I just think like if she was like a nun or a monk, she might go back to just like her monastery. That could be all that it means. Kind of like what Sam's doing for his side.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Getting knowledge, kind of bringing it back. I'm not sure.
Yeah, or trying to interpret her thoughts.
Yeah, and spreading the word, because she's been on a crazy adventure that her religion or her people, in a sense, don't know.
Well, see, I don't know if I agree with that, because I don't think she's like ready to preach anymore about it. She's just like, yeah, it's true, but I get it wrong every time I talk about it. I was told one thing, and this is how I was supposed to interpret it, and I was wrong the whole time until this happened. And yes, it's very powerful, and yes, it's true, but I have no idea to articulate how it works or why it works.
Right. And she shares one of these visions with Varys, which makes him shit some webs.
Does he ever?
She tells him that he must die in this country, as well as Varys. So he freaks out, and I think this pretty much confirms their deaths in season 8, because they're not just gonna die of old age; they're gonna show their death, and I think it's gonna have a serious ramifications on the story.
This is what I mean back to the destiny thing. It's like there's a few characters that are able to read the map or read the plan, and they interpret it in different ways, but they're correct a lot of time.
Okay, and then it makes me think of when Melisandre comes back to Westeros, and Varys is in Westeros, how are they going to end up dying? So we know that Melisandre is going to come back because she has to see Arya. She's promised her that they will end up meeting again. So Arya might have a hand to play in that, even though I doubt it. I think they're going to have an interaction. I don't know if Arya is going to kill her.
So the fate of Varys for me doesn't seem like it's a combat situation. Obviously, he's going to die in like something like that, like an attempt on his life, a single attacker type of thing. He's not going to die in war.
With Varys, I have a tinfoil theory that's based on facts we've gotten earlier in the season. And I totally agree. We're not going to see Varys fight. Varys is more political. So I think if he dies, it'll be because he's made a mistake or he chose to do what he thought was right and it ended up biting him in the ass. So what I think with Varys is that he's made it very clear.
You don't think him dying in a self-sacrificing way?
No, not at all.
For the better of the people, just what he says.
Well, that's the whole thing. So I think it will come back to that, because he will do whatever is necessary, and he will support whoever is best for the people. And Daenerys, I think, throughout the season is going to prove otherwise. Like, she did abolish slavery, but she has certain means of approaching certain situations. And I think Varys is supporting her because she is the best possible candidate. But I believe Varys is going to be confronted with the issue that there's a better candidate to the throne than Daenerys, and he's going to end up backing that person, and it may bite him in the ass. So I think that, and I have a really in-depth analysis about Jon and Daenerys coming together and meeting, but I think over time he may figure out that he may see Jon as an even more favorable ruler once he discovers that he's a possible Targaryen.
Yeah.
Because he's the most humble dude ever. He doesn't want to lead. And comparing Jon and Daenerys, I think as time goes on, he may see Jon as more favorable because he's kinder in a sense. He's not there's very stark differences, pun intended, between the two characters.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that.
He's a uniter of people, not a conqueror of people or a ruler of people.
Exactly. So I think that would be the coolest way to kill Varys, is that he wants to back Daenerys, but then he realizes there's another Targaryen, and holy shit, it's Jon Snow, and he's like the perfect candidate. But then moving on to Melisandre and her death, I think it would be somewhat religion-focused, kind of backing up her, but this is all tinfoil. She could give her life to resurrect someone else. She could be assassinated by Arya because she was on her list, but since she has been removed in the show. And I always want to throw Bran in there because they're kind of opposite religions believing in the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just would find it interesting if she was always following Bran or something and Bran kind of came to her downfall. I don't know. That's crazy tinfoil, but I feel like whenever I talk about Melisandre, I have to mention Bran because they're both on opposite sides of the same spectrum kind of a thing.
Yeah.
One more thing I want to talk about. When Varys shit his pants about dying, it obviously seems like it pulled a cord.
Yeah,
so,
the cord that's not there.
Yeah, exactly. See, the Red Wizard made sure of that. So it just makes me wonder what significance that has with Varys, about him getting his little bits cut off and thrown in the flames, and why that's so significant. And it's such a huge part of his character.
Yeah, it's what makes him who he is.
Yeah, so when I look into it, Red Gods, or Melisandre's type, they only look at people who have royal blood. And it seems like one of them had an interest in Varys. So that could suggest that he has bastard royal blood. This has been talked about in the books, that he's actually kind of a bastard Targaryen. The reason he shaves his head is because he's got really blonde hair.
Yeah.
And that could have happened to him. And then it goes into a whole thing about what he heard in the flames and why that's significant. And I think that kind of connects to Melisandre saying here that he will die in Westeros. And we know that the voice that screamed in the flames said something, because in season 6, Kinvara, the Red Witch that came to Meereen, asked Varys if he wanted to hear what the voice said. So it did say something significant, and it's weighing heavy on Varys. So I wonder if we'll get a revelation with that later in the series.
It would be really cool to find out if he's like someone really cool.
Yeah.
Like from before.
That whole experience had to happen with Varys, because obviously if that didn't happen, he wouldn't become the eunuch. If that didn't happen, he wouldn't push Daenerys into such a state to end up becoming the person she is. Varys is pretty much responsible for backing Varys, allowing a marriage proposal to give him the Dothraki, and he pretty much jump-started this whole thing. So I think that scene with Varys is very important.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Like, I don't know the extent of the blood magic. If it's only King's blood that has something to do with it, or the only King's blood you're able to see it, because then how do we explain the Hound, right? He was able to see into the flames. So what are the ingredients, if it's just King's blood, that allow people to see into the flames?
Yeah.
Because what's the name of the smith? The Baratheon's bastard?
Gendry?
Yeah. So that happened to him because he had King's blood, right? With the leeches or whatever. So he got a taste of that.
Well, they can always see in the flames. It's the King's blood that allows something to unfold.
For sure.
They needed Shireen. They needed Shireen to take away the storms. They needed Gendry, and Stannis said, like, kill the usurper Joffrey, kill the usurper Renly, and then that ended up happening. So it's the King's blood that allows the magic, not the visions in the flames.
Okay, so yeah, no, so there is something there, because the person that wanted Varys, he paid like a lot of money for like a nobody. So he is of importance. Something in him is important.
Yeah, so it seems like whatever happened to Varys had to happen. So I just wonder why they cut his dick off. Maybe there's something significant there too.
No, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you now, because I just read it says that the guy that wanted, like the slave owner that bought him, paid a lot of money for him. Like specifically, like he saw something in him, or
exactly.
there was something to him.
Exactly. So he needed that blood, and he needed to create something.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense. But then we move on to the throne room, and it's the first time we see Daenerys and Jon come together. I really like this scene. I'm glad that they had conflict. What did you think about it?
Oh, it was great. It's they're always going to be like that, though.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I loved how, Daenerys pretty much expects Jon to bend the knee. So I find it interesting how she set up this whole thing to try and assert dominance over the guy. Because as soon as he walks in, Melisandre reads every single one of her titles.
Yeah, she sounds like a Floyd Mayweather hype man, just reading off how her record, right?
And she's saying it so straight, trying to shake Jon up.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't give a shit. He just sees her, right now he sees her kind of as a pampered queen who thinks she's entitled to anything she wants. He doesn't know everything she's been through. And it's the same the other way around. Daenerys has no idea what the hell Jon's been through.
No, exactly. But this is the thing, though. This goes back to my thing where nothing is working for Daenerys. She's away from home now, and she's realizing that. And every tactic that she's used and has worked for her before is not working, including this. Even though Jon's a good guy, her, stretching out her wings, if you will, is not working. And it's another knock at her character when in Westeros, because she can't get anything right.
Yeah. Every
plan that she's had, as we'll see later on, falls apart. And so are her expectations of this campaign that she's on.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna keep wearing at her and wearing at her. And this scene, I believe, is a part of that. She's like, I can't assert my dominance without being who I am in Essos, so I'm gonna have to start burning shit down.
Yeah, no, exactly. And she starts addressing Jon as Lord, and this is where the politics kind of kicks in, because Davos gets upset and says that he is king. And then they get through all in cahoots about how Daenerys last remembers Torrhen Stark being king of the North, but he ended up bending the knee, and he swore the oath in fealty, because she's trying to sound smart, to make Jon, like, intimidated.
Yeah.
Which means forever. So Daenerys is upset that he came all that way to break faith, and Jon pretty much is like, why would I? Your father burned my uncle and my grandfather. She ends up apologizing. It becomes this whole thing. And she states that she's the last Targaryen, which I thought was a really obvious and funny foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Because I think, like many things, her whole world's going to be crumbling down when she learns more and more about Jon. But I love Jon in this scene. Like, I thought he outwitted Daenerys at every turn. Because she tried to dominate the fuck out of him. And then he's like, well, if you're not guilty of your father's crimes, then I'm not beholden to my ancestors' vows.
Yeah.
It's like, you're damn right. I totally agree with everything Jon's done in this whole season. I think he's been, like, really smart, and he's handling himself really well.
Yeah, it's just, he can't help it. He's just so, like, you know what I mean?
So great.
He could do anything, and it would just work itself out. It's so, like, that's what I mean. It's so obvious for me for that. He can't help but be amazing. And that's not gushing over it. That's just his character.
Yeah, and I think that pisses Daenerys off in a way, because she's trying to get the upper hand here, but, like, she can't. Like, she's sparring with this guy, and he refuses to back down. And this is, like, the first person she's ever approached that hasn't kind of... she hasn't out-alphaed. She's been able to alpha everybody she's talked to, except for Jon. So I think that's really hard for her to deal with. But then he ends up bringing up his problems and bringing up the enemy to the north and how he needs her help in defeating them. But then she obviously thinks it's bullshit, and then she ends up going on this huge speech about how she birthed dragons, she brought Dothraki over the sea, she was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms, and she will. And she's pretty much going on saying how great she is and all of her accolades and why Jon should listen to her. And then Jon refuses to speak up because he's the humblest, greatest guy ever. And then Davos mentions all of John's accolades. And he applies good logic. Like, they're outwitting Daenerys, I feel like, in this scene. Like, if Faith brought Daenerys to Westeros, then it made Jon king of the North. I'm sure she can't argue with that. Because I feel like Daenerys always looks through a lens that's just for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's very self-centered.
Yeah. So he gives Jon's resume. Made allies of wildlings, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, then he was King of the North. He has no birthright, and he still earned those things. And he doesn't go around speeching about who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned all the things that Daenerys doesn't believe in, Jon ended up facing. And then Jon ends up stopping him before he says that he got killed by his people. Why do you think Jon stopped Davos from saying that he took a knife in the heart for his own people? Because
he's scared that he's dealing in bullshit. To anyone from an outside angle of his situation, it would all be bullshit. Which is kind of crazy because he doesn't know what she went through with Khal Drogo. Like, she knows that people can be resurrected and fixed this way, and she's been from that part of the world where that's sort of like rumored to be normal. You know what I mean? So that's what's so weird about it. But at the same time, Jon doesn't deal with bullshit. Like, he knows what happened is pretty crazy, and he's not ready to play that card yet.
I agree with that. And something that I find very interesting about this scene is that Davos specifically says that he took a knife in his heart for his people. And the reason why I find that so interesting is because I've been working on a Jon Snow video, and it's been taking me a long time. But I find it interesting how they said he took a knife in the heart for his people, because it was also said that dragonglass to the heart created the Night King. So it's just another connection between the two. Jon was reborn through that heart. Killed the boy, let the man be born. The Night King was resurrected as a White Walker.
Yeah.
So I just think that's an interesting connection.
Sorry, side note. Do you think, like, that scene where they're all fighting up north, like, are they going to meet the Night's King?
I hope so. It would make sense, yeah. I think so.
Like, it seems so crazy. Like, do you think he's going to have words with him? Or try to?
I don't know if we're ever going to hear him talk. I think it would be cool, but, like, it seems like they're not the diplomatic type. And, they're in... What's creepy about that is that they're totally in his territory. So I don't know how that's going to unfold.
I don't know. It just seems like some of the lore around it is that they are diplomatic people.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm wondering, but like, they might be going in with not enough knowledge of what they need to do in order to like converse with these guys. I'm so excited for that scene, man.
You know what would set your argument up really well? The scene in the trailer where we see Jon's back and he looks like a badass and he kills one person. Do you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like almost like they're waiting for him.
It's like they're all whites and they're not attacking him. What if the Night King is strategically sending one or two guys, and then while all the whites are surrounded by Jon, he goes in and has a diplomatic discussion with him? Or something like that.
Or tries to. Yeah, that's what I was getting the feeling of. Like, they go there to try, like, exactly what he's doing now with Daenerys is like, okay, maybe we try and talk to this guy. Like, they have no idea that he doesn't talk, even though he's crazy.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think Jon thinks that they're, like, weapons right now. But I think since Jon's the guy, like, Jon is who he is. You see in that scene there's fire in the background, so Daenerys was there. You see whites, like a bunch of whites standing there. I think Jon isn't going to have a choice. Like, he's going to be pinned up. He's going to try and fight his way out. And the Night King's going to surround him and force him into a conversation. And Jon's going to realize, oh, shit, you're not everything like we think you are. Like, you're a lot more.
You're not just a shitty first man.
Yeah, so then he'll send Jon back. And then that's where they'll change. That's what would be so cool is Jon saying we need to deal with the dead. And then he goes back after seeing all this shit and talking to the Night King. And Daenerys is like, no, fuck you, man. We need to kill all of them. And Jon's like, no. Like, you don't understand. And it'd be like this whole thing.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the name of the person that I watched. It wasn't Altchef or any of those like major guys, but I think it was someone that does really good videos. And it was a good theory about what the Night King wants. And it seems like the way that he talks about it is that it's almost like he was a pretty cool dude for the last however many years, but then man has just broken all the promises from ancient times.
Yeah.
Like, Craster's kids were the last kids that were being given to them as sacrifices now, and it's just like that was the final straw. So now that the Craster's no longer giving them kids, they have no way to procreate, and all this bullshit with them coming north of the wall was alright, and he wasn't attacking them. But now it's like, nah, you guys you're taking too much. And now it's his time to come down and kind of lay down the law or find terms. Because it was making sense to me, because I never understood why they were moving around the north the way that he was.
Yeah.
Like, he would go to Hardhome, he would go here, he would go there. And it was just like, are they looking for something? Or are they looking for, like, maybe they were stealing Wildling's kids to make into their own? You know what I mean? And then the Wildlings had enough and they started migrating south to get out of that situation. So now there's no one there for them to procreate with the way that they do it anyways. Mm-hmm. So they're forced to come south.
Interesting.
But it was an agreement between the first man and them to say, okay, here's the line. We stay up here where it's nice and cold. You guys have down there, and just give us these things, and we'll lay off.
Yeah.
But now those things have dried up, and promises have been forgotten. So that's why I think Sam's going to come in with maybe more to that story, give that info to Jon, and maybe Jon's like, well, let's go broker a deal. And he sends his little band of people up there, and it looks like it goes south by the trailer, or like that's them just getting to the point where they can talk to them, because they don't understand that they're not there to talk, but to attack.
Yeah, and that would be interesting because we'll see like what Daenerys' arc is, because obviously she doesn't believe them at all right now, and she's gonna have to know at some point. And how is Jon gonna prove that to her? And right now, Jon's running around saying that he can't swear fealty, and he really shuts Daenerys up, saying, like, why would I support you if your claim only rests on your father's? And Jon's actually kind of pissed, but he doesn't give a fuck at the same time, because Daenerys is kind of holding him prisoner.
Yeah, it's like he's put on hold. He's not quite... It's like kind of like what Theon was to the Starks, right? Like a ward.
Yeah.
But just a more, obviously more temporary in this situation.
Yeah, they took his ship and he can't leave. And they interrupt the conversation because Varys walks in and he tells her of the ship attack. And I find this funny because I feel like every single turn that happens, they end up losing. So it shows that Tyrion is not doing as good of a job right now as Hand of the Queen.
No.
Because he's a good diplomat, but I don't know if he's a good war strategist.
Well, he is when he's not facing off the two best war strategists in Westeros.
You think Cersei's a war strategist?
Oh, big time, buddy. She's the Tywin Jr.
Really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I would say she's not Tywin.
But that's what I mean. Like, you have three of the greatest war strategists ever in the history of Westeros. Tyrion, Jaime, and her. And because they're Tywin's kids. Like, they all know this shit backwards and forwards. Tyrion has the diplomatic edge, but Cersei's all in. And Jaime's the swing vote. Like, we were talking about this. Jaime would have known about that little whorehouse that Tyrion had. Yeah. So Tyrion totally, like, he's thinking that he's in a war with Cersei. But Jaime would have been the one to say, like, hey, he's going to do it this way. He can come up to the sewer.
Yeah. No, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, she's amazing. You gotta think about how much shit she's pulled.
Well, she's been pulling off some strategy. It's gotten her in trouble sometimes, but she's gotten out of certain situations in King's Landing.
Oh, she is like a chess master.
Really? I wouldn't say that she's a Tywin. I would say, as Tywin said, she's not as smart as she thinks she is. She makes stupid mistakes. Like, she armed the Faith of the Seven. It was a short-term goal to try and take care of the Tyrells, but it ended up biting her in the ass.
I agree. That was maybe her sacrificing a pretty good piece on the board, but she learned a lesson from there, and she also learned from that big time though, because now she knows to be even more ruthless.
Yeah, interesting.
Didn't she kill the girl that she went to see the witch with?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she killed one of the girls that she went to see the frog lady with.
Oh, interesting.
It's like she's crazy. She's a crazy, like, plotter and executor.
But it will be interesting to see what Daenerys does with her strategy based on everything that's happened. Like, she won't want to listen to Tyrion. I wonder if she'll go to Jon for counsel and see, like, if he could offer anything since she's letting him mine the dragon glass.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. But that's the biggest thing between these two characters, Jon and Daenerys, is I love seeing them combat each other. Daenerys couldn't get the upper hand. And I think in the future, Daenerys is going to have, like, a crude awakening and realize that she's almost not as good as she thinks she is, or that she has a huge contender, and that's Jon. Because when she goes to Jon and she says, like, I've had faith in myself, like, she has such faith in herself, and when Melisandre arrived, she assumed that she would be the savior, and she almost got upset when it was Prince, until Missandei corrected her. Like, she's so consumed with herself being everything. She wanted to be prophesized as the savior to something that she doesn't even believe in, which Jon came to warn her about. And it's tough because, like, her whole destiny is to be, like, the greatest and achieve everything. But, like, Jon combats her in every field, and she has no idea right now. Like, she says she's the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Jon is the son of Rhaegar, and he has a better claim to the Iron Throne. She's the mother of 3 dragons. well, we'll see until Jon can ride one of her dragons. Like, he'll form a connection just as good with one of her dragons. She's the breaker of chains. Jon broke barriers for the wildlings. She's unburnt. Jon is undead. She claims she's the last Targaryen. Jon's the hidden Targaryen. You know what I mean?
And truly the last.
Yeah, and it's like she...
by birth order.
Oh, and she hears of the dead. Jon fought the dead. But then you see, like, their leadership and why, like, I was talking about Varys supporting Jon. There's stuff like this. When Daenerys took Meereen, she took the side of the slaves. I understand why you would do that. Slavery is awful. But she took the slavers and put them on pikes just as they did to the slaves without any reason for them to communicate. Tyrion had to be the one to play the role of the diplomat for Daenerys because she refused to. Which is understood because those are drastic circumstances. But when Jon dealt with the wildlings, he didn't know who they were. But he brought them in and had a mutual respect for both sides and tried to bring them together. He didn't choose one side or treat a side differently. He was the mediator or the bridge between the two sides. And that's what he is as ice and fire. So I just find that so interesting how Daenerys is always soaking up who she is and how she's the savior. And Jon refuses to claim any of it, even though he's just as better off as she is. But neither of them really know it.
Yeah. But the difference is, I think Jon doesn't really care. He doesn't want to be the leader. He just happens to keep falling ass backwards into the throne.
Yeah.
Whereas Daenerys wants it, like, down to her DNA. She thinks that she deserves it and will not stop fighting until she has it. Whereas Jon's like, I don't care. Just like, I have a problem and I need to fix it because there's this. And he always finds that the best way to fix the problem is to be a uniter of the people, no matter what, literally costing him his life, no matter what it costs.
And in the show's case, he decided to try and fix his problems by brooding on a cliff. And Tyrion ends up coming to visit him. And they're both brooding that Tyrion failed to see the attack on the Greyjoy fleet, whereas Jon is brooding over the fact that nobody believes him. And I just find this location very interesting because we see this in the trailer, but we haven't seen it yet. We see Tyrion walking along the hills. He looks very concerned, and then we see three dragons fly upward. And we even get another shot of a dragon kind of showing its teeth at Tyrion. Mm-hmm. So I'd wonder if after Casterly Rock, that whole fiasco, and the whole Unsullied fleet being taken over by Euron, I wonder if he'll go back to that location to brood over that and think about it. And then Daenerys visits him on the back of Drogon and says, like, we're not listening to you anymore. I need to be the mother of dragons. I need to use my dragons, and that's what's going to start the fight going forward.
Yeah. She's going as, like, air support on the next mission for sure.
She has to.
She can't take any more losses.
Yeah, exactly. But on this cliff, we get a scene between Jon and Tyrion. Pretty much Tyrion states that he trusts Jon, and he believes in the White Walkers and the dead. Because he trusts Jon, and he'd rather trust a man who's honest rather than the majority of people who just believe what they want to believe, kind of a thing. I said that way less eloquently than Tyrion did.
Yeah.
But then Jon asks, how will everyone believe him about the White Walkers? And I think this is a big plot point. Like, it keeps coming up, like Jon is wondering how to get everybody on the same side. So I think that's what he's thinking about, and that's moving him to a mission. Like, how to prove that these things are real.
Yeah, like, I wonder, like, I'm really thinking he's going there to make terms, but maybe he's going there to maybe capture one so he could bring it back. But how would...
Do you think that's cheesy, or do you think that's, like, it could work if they played it right?
No, they would, like, how else? You would need to show like, think of the stakes. There's, like, a total world war going on, and this fictitious thing is coming that he can't explain to anyone, that really makes everything else seem small in comparison. And that's what he tries to convey that, and even as convincing and as charming as he is as a speaker, it's like, yeah, okay, that sounds like you're telling the truth, but I still can't wrap my head around what the fuck you mean.
Yeah. I just can't tell from an action point of view, if they go and capture a white, how that's even going to happen.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. That's why I really think he's going to get terms.
But how would one go? Like, he didn't have a chance for terms at Hardhome. You know what I mean? Like, why would you decide to negotiate terms with something that has proved that it's not diplomatic?
Because he doesn't have complete information. I'm telling you, Sam's going to get him something, and maybe it's like, oh, you have to offer them this, or you have to act in this way, or like, so the scene where we see his back and he cuts down that one guy, right? This also kind of happened at Hardhome. The Night's King was on like a perch looking down on him, and one of his lieutenants went down and attacked Jon, and that's when the first thing he saw a man cut down one of his like elite. So it was almost like to me, and I might be stretching, but it almost seemed like he respected that, even though he would be taking a loss. It was almost like, whoa, that one's a special one. So Jon didn't stick around to wait and see if they would all just stop attacking. He just got the fuck out of there like everybody else. Right? And then it was like the Night's King whipped out his dick literally by letting everybody rise up from the dead to show, like, this is how powerful I am. So it's interesting to see, like, what would make 10 dudes or however many dudes go north. They got to be going to get something, and
it seemed like they were being attacked though.
Yeah, but that could be after the fact. You know what I mean? Or it really could be that we think that they're being attacked in the one scene, and it's not till the after scene, because the part where they're getting into like a circle, it could mean that they're approaching, right? Because every time they approach, there's like a blizzard.
Yeah.
So they get into a defensive circle, but maybe they're not attacked until later. Obviously, it looks like they get into battle mode after, but the way that they cut the trailer, it could be that they get into this defensive mode. But it really seems like he goes to like almost like a throne room situation. He cuts down one and is confidently walking up to like someone of power.
I think it would be really cool if they did.
Because I don't see anything else. Like, how would he just cut one down? It almost seems like he puts down his sword in a sense, not back in his sheath, but he doesn't ready it up to attack the next one.
Yeah, he just rests it. Yeah, I have no idea. It'd be interesting. But in this conversation between Tyrion and Jon, pretty much Tyrion compares them, saying that she protects people from monsters just like Jon. So it's a comparison between the two. And he pretty much says that Jon isn't asking for anything reasonable. So Jon comes to the conclusion to ask about Dragonglass. Tyrion talks to Daenerys about this. And he pretty much says that it's useless, so you might as well let him mine it anyway.
Yeah.
The most important thing that I find about this is him saying that Dragonglass is useless. It's pretty much value is in whatever we perceive it to be. You know what I mean? Like, in a depression, food will be a lot more valuable than gold.
Yeah.
And I think this is interesting because we're getting a lot of gold versus Dragonglass kind of talk. Like, Jon in the first episode said that Dragonglass is more valuable than gold now. And he's the only one who knows about the Army of the Dead. Whereas Cersei's whole war that she's waging right now is to pay the Iron Bank back for gold. So it's funny how, like, everyone's fighting this war and it's all centered around gold between the Lannisters and Daenerys and all them. Whereas Jon's fighting about Dragonglass. Whereas in the next season, Winterfell could be sitting pretty with all this valuable Dragonglass that nobody has even realized is valuable.
Yeah.
And it will be valuable, I guess, when the Night King comes. And then we get a small scene of Daenerys asking Tyrion what he meant, what Davos meant by Jon taking the knife to the heart. So I guess that just shows her interest. Then there's the scene between Jon and Daenerys. And this is kind of the first scene, I guess, where we see them kind of talk it out. Question I wanted to ask you about that everyone's feuding about is she says that her two dragons were named after her brothers, Rhaegal and Viserion.
Mm-hmm.
And she says to Jon that you lost two brothers as well. So how do you explain this, judging that Rickon died, Robb died, and then Bran is presumed dead or missing. So why do you think she assumed 2 brothers instead of 3? It's stupid, but everyone's talking about it.
Oh, you think like they slipped up on the script, you mean?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it is weird. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, they might have messed up. My only explanation is that Jon knows that Bran went north because Sam let him pass through the gates. But
yeah, but then it's like they wouldn't know that because last they heard the crows or ravens that have flown have the Stark boys being burnt, and then Rickon only being confirmed as living. Well, yeah, if you think about it that way, right? Ramsay had Rickon, and that disproved the 2 boys being burned, right?
I guess so.
So it's just one of those things.
It's mucky. You just gotta dismiss
it's semantic, yeah.
Yeah.
It works, but it's like if you're really getting into a role of someone there, then yeah, it seems kind of dicey.
Yeah. And then they pretty much talk about, everyone enjoys what they're good at. Jon says that he doesn't enjoy what he's good at. What do you think that is? I think that's leading. He's just too good at leading.
And he's like, fucking people, just get behind me.
I know, but he hates it. And killing too, I guess, or fighting.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man. Falling ass backwards onto thrones.
But then they both agree, or they both have the same argument that they had before, that Daenerys still thinks that he should bend the knee, and Jon hasn't changed his mind. But she'll allow Jon to mine for dragonglass.
So do you think this is it for him on Dragonstone?
No, man. I think he's going to mine it. I think they're going to build a relationship between Daenerys and Jon, maybe a bit. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to hint more and more to Daenerys that Jon isn't full of shit, that he actually is preaching something that is real.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's why I was hoping something with Jorah. Like Sam would say, like, oh, I'm here because of this, right? And then so it would be like corroborating evidence. Like Jorah would say, oh, the man that saved me at the Citadel was friends with Jon, and he was there because he's studying to deal with these White Walkers. So she would get like another collaboration on this actual threat.
Yeah, Jorah may be the one to mediate the two.
Yeah, because of what Sam did, but it doesn't seem like there's much more of that happening. Jorah seems like he's already on his way to wherever she is.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Jorah, that's what we get a look at the Citadel. Ebrose is testing him out. His infection's no longer active. He says that he is going to go back to Daenerys. And he says that he owes his life to Daenerys and Sam, and they hope that their paths cross again. They end up shaking hands, which I thought was like a nice little scene. Because it's like Sam took a risk for shaking his hand, kind of.
Oh, big time.
But then that's like, what's Jorah's purpose when he goes? It's that, he's kind of would be a connection between Jon and Daenerys. Because think about it, if Jorah is a Mormont, technically, even though he was exiled, Jon is his king.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. He supports Daenerys as queen, but at the same time, logistically, he's technically a northerner, so Jon would be his king.
Yeah, I don't think Jon would play that, or anyone would really play that card on him, though.
No.
Because he's obviously loyal to Daenerys.
I agree. And Jorah is such an important role, too, because he's the one person who actually supports Daenerys as a leader, and just Daenerys. He doesn't support her because of her dragons or her fleet or the dragonglass. He supports her for who she is. And I think she's
totally in love with him.
Yeah, and
he's totally in love with her.
So I think she needs somebody to rub her ego.
Oh yeah, big time. Especially with what's going on and what's to come with her foiled plans.
I know, and Jon sure as hell won't. So
I just picture a scene like Jorah seeing Jon's sword and be like, oh, like that would have technically been my sword.
Yeah.
Had it not been a fuck up.
Yeah. And I think that Jon's going to try and offer it back, but Jorah's going to refuse. It just seems like something that would happen.
I was thinking that too, because like it comes down to Lightbringer, right? If Jon is going to switch swords or not, or the one that he has is the main sword.
I think it'll be his sword.
Interesting.
Yeah, but then after that whole thing, Ebrose talks to Sam, saying that what he did was dangerous. But at the end of the day, Maester Ebrose said that he should be proud of saving Jorah, and he said that, you know, his reward is not being expelled. And he gave him a bunch of old manuscripts and scrolls to recopy. And I think that this was a subtle, like, this is your reward, without him blatantly saying it. Because I'm convinced that these scrolls are old information regarding White Walkers, Dragon Glass, like all the histories and lore in these manuscripts and scrolls. And Sam is going to be recopying them and learning as he does it.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I think I said. Like, it seems like they're going to be in there. I think it's like both. It's half punishment and half what he wants. Yeah. Because it's going to be filled with bullshit, old Nan's tales, and then boom, he's going to find the document that he needs within this junk.
And I think it's key that it's like old manuscripts. Like, they'll be like hundreds and hundreds of years old. So yeah. I think that'll be vital. But anyways, we get a look at Theon. He gets rescued by the Ironborn. I'll spare you the long talk about him. But
well, no, here, before we do that, so redeeming moment possibly ahead for him. Do you think he drowned? Like, was it enough of how they pulled him out of the water for them to say, like, obviously not in the situation that he got pulled out of the water because they just think he's a pussy. But do you think that scene showed, like, he did what their kings had to do?
I was looking for that like crazy because we didn't stop talking about it. I don't know if you can consider him drowning. Like, he seemed just cold as fuck when he got dragged back on. I hope he did. I think that would be interesting. But I think regardless, it is kind of a new arc for Theon. Like, he has to take that leadership role, even though they disrespect him like crazy.
Yeah.
They called him on his shit for bailing on Yara. I know. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. But then, speaking of Greyjoys, we see Euron Greyjoy bring Yara, Ellaria, and Tyene through King's Landing. It ends up being this whole thing. Euron Greyjoy ends up teasing Jaime about Cersei, whether if she likes it in the bum or not.
That's so funny, man. He's hilarious.
Yeah, but the most interesting thing, everyone's loving Euron. You really like him, eh?
No, I just think he's like the Ramsay, I guess, of the season. He's just 100% black side, like total evil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's in it for him. You know what his intentions are. There's no bullshit about him. He's just awful.
Yeah, but the most interesting thing I find about this scene is that he takes Yara back with him.
Yeah, there's not even anyone pointing that out. You know what I mean? You just see her get dragged back.
Yeah, like I thought.
He's not like, oh, I'm keeping her because I have plans with her on the Iron Islands. Like, it seems very weird because she would be a major opponent of Cersei's that didn't get dealt with.
Exactly. I figured it would be natural to keep the person who betrayed, but Euron ended up taking her. So I don't know if she's going to come back and what Euron's going to do with her. Maybe we'll get a torture scene with Euron and her like we did with Cersei and Ellaria. I'm not sure. But speaking of that torture scene, Cersei ends up walking in, torturing the fuck out of them, and then kissing Tyene, which is Ellaria Sand's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything to say for this scene other than, like, it was amazing. I love this scene. This was honestly one of probably my favorite scene in the episode. Does that make me look like a sick fuck?
No, because it just shows how Cersei is.
It just was so, like, emotional. Like, the acting was unreal. Like, this scene to me was like the last scene in Westworld episode 1 when we see Abernathy go all nuts.
Yeah.
For me, this scene was like an acting tribute, kind of like that. Like, I just really appreciated it. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah. Do you think that's the last of the what's her name?
That's what I was wondering. I don't know if they would show her again or not. Like, we know that, hey, like, her daughter's gonna die and she's gonna be there watching. So it depends if they're gonna wanna give us an update. But I don't think they have any more significance in the plot other than to drive how crazy Cersei is. Maybe she shows Jaime and that rubs off on him a little bit more, but other than that, I don't know how they would move the plot forward with Ellaria. But speaking to Jaime, Cersei pays him a visit and they have sexy time and then that's it. And Jaime says no initially, so I guess that kind of hints where he's at.
Oh, he's pissed with her, man.
Yeah. And then Cersei meets with the Iron Bank, and that guy, I forget his name, but he shares your belief that she is definitely Tywin Lannister's daughter. And she does a really good job at convincing him. She said, would you rather a revolutionary or a monarch? Pretty much stating that Daenerys is bad for business because of the slave trade and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So she promises him that within 2 weeks or a fortnight that he will be paid in full. And then that's pretty much foreshadowing her mission to Highgarden to get all of that gold. But I want to move on to Winterfell. We see Sansa rule. She's doing a good job, stocking up on food, all that shit. And then Littlefinger gives her some advice that I thought was actually really good. He told her to fight every battle, not just her battles, because if you do, you won't see anything you haven't seen before. And she almost takes it as good advice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she gets interrupted by the arrival of Bran Stark. And he's just so excited to see her. Holy Christ.
They should have really toned it down for him. He was a little bit too excited, I think.
Yeah. So he arrives. Hi, Sansa. And then they end up at the Weirwood tree, and he says that he needs to speak to Jon. And he pretty much describes her wedding night, which was a very tragic night for Sansa. Look, I get the scene saying that he can't piece things together yet, okay? So everything that he sees are fragments, which tells me that this is a clever way of saying that Bran cannot tell what Littlefinger has done wrong. He can't put pieces together of everything because they're all fragments.
Yeah.
So it's a way of saying that there's nothing he can do to help out in certain situations. They've kind of nerfed him because he needs to learn.
I wonder if it's like it has to do with touch, because she hugged him, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's something like once you've grounded yourself with someone, that you are able to tell what they've gone through.
That would explain that, eh?
Because
imagine like you see your sister, and then as soon as she touches you, you see like the most traumatic experiences in her life.
Yeah.
And then you're just stuck like talking to her when you're like just getting fed all of this terrible stuff she's been going through.
Exactly. Like he can never unsee what he saw, but as soon as it renders in his mind, he can talk about it.
Look, with Bran, I think that they should have done it more gradual. I think he's staying like this. I think he's always going to be a weirdo now.
Yeah.
I just don't know why, like, they should have made it more gradual. I don't know, like, he was normal in Season 6, Episode 10, talking to Benjen and that whole thing, and he said to Mira, I'm the three-eyed raven now, and he seemed, like, all happy and fine, and now he's fucked. Like, I think he's going to be stuck like that.
Yeah, it's very jarring. It's totally justifiable. He should be a little bit weird with the powers that he has and everything that's going on, but yeah, it's just... They didn't.
Here's how I feel.
They didn't blur the lines.
Yeah, here's the thing. I get it. I appreciate it. I like that Bran went on that arc. It makes sense. If you're getting fed all of this information from everything and you can't turn it off, nothing in the real world will impress you because you already know everything.
Yeah.
Like Sansa's telling him about all this stuff that he's seen hundreds and hundreds of times over and over. You know what I mean? And he sees Sansa all the time in his visions, and he can't turn it off. So when he sees her in real life, it's nothing because he can't connect what's real versus what he's seeing.
Yeah, he's still learning. Like the visions that he saw when he was with the three-eyed raven were like curated things that he needed to see, whereas he's left now sort of swimming through infinity, kind of like McConaughey at the end of Interstellar. And he's trying to piece things together. Like, he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. That's why I kind of came up with that on the fly, that maybe touch has something to do with it. Because I pictured this really funny scene in my head where Littlefinger's like, good to see you, Bran. And he, like, pats him on the shoulder, and Bran just, like, sees everything that Littlefinger's done and just totally outs him. But something like that. Like, it is, touch has a major thing to do with it. He's got to touch the roots. And the Night's King touched him and was able to channel something. So it could be something there.
I'm just, like, I appreciate the story arc they're going with this, but a couple problems. One, I wish that they showed the previous three-eyed raven to have a similar social distance between people.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they made him seem more like Bran, like emotionally detached. And I forget my second point. So, that's it. I was going to say something really important, but I forgot.
What do you think is... What's her name that's with him? That brought him there?
Mira.
Do you think... What's Mira's fate in all this?
I think she's just going to go home. And I think Bran's going to be like, bye.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. She's going to go, and that's gonna be it.
You don't think we'll see her again?
Maybe not. Like, honestly, like, what would she be useful for? Unless they need to bring...
She's a pretty epic warrior, man.
Yeah, unless they need to bring Howland Reed into it, but... Yeah, she could fight, but... I don't know. Bran's just gone. Man, I just wish it was gradual. It pisses me off. They should have shown us why. You can't just drop that shit on us. Like, oh, look, he's a totally different person than you last saw him.
Yeah, it was like he was too shell-shocked.
And I thought it was almost comical. Like, they almost handled it too comical. Like, it's fucking serious. This guy's got, like tree PTSD.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, seriously? Like, they should have explored that.
It'd be interesting to see what his next scene will be like.
I'm just annoyed. I wish they showed his progression. They should have shown him get, like, emotional and broken down because he can't distinguish between the real world and what he's seeing. And I wish he would be so broken down to the point where it's easier for him to be an emotionless bag of shit rather than be, like, tethered to reality, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just wish I saw that. But we're not going to get it because I want to speed things really fast.
That's why I'm really hoping he's, like, in processing mode.
Yeah. I doubt it, but we'll see.
Because it's like, how would anyone take him seriously with the shit that he says?
Because he's fucked up.
Because even if he says, "Oh, Littlefinger did this to our dad," like, we'd be like, "What?" Like, he would have to have corroborating information with the way that
this
he's
is
acting.
this is one of the things where I'm really annoyed with, though, because it's like him saying that it's all fragments. Like, I don't think he's gonna have any dirt on Littlefinger because I don't think he's gonna see it. Like, he's not going to be looking that way. He's going to be looking at the north, and he's going to be looking at that, and then all the pieces that are surrounding him is like Littlefinger and everything like that, and he hasn't put it together yet.
Yeah.
So I think Bran's pretty much going to be just a useless weirdo working to try and prevent the White Walkers from coming.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I want to see him with other people. I'm actually upset because, like, I liked his character, and it pisses me off how they gypped everyone by just kind of changing him to nothing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. He's still really, really important, but
I don't know. It should have been an arc. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, like just like a 30-second scene of him talking to Mira. Like,
I know,
oh,
honestly,
man, it's really hard because it seemed like even when he got to the wall, yeah, he was granted a little weird to Buddy there, but it's like, yeah, they just came with Winter at their back, like trying to kill them the entire time. That makes sense.
We know why he's emotionally shut down, but show us, because, like, he's a character that we've, like, followed for so long. Like, we followed him as a kid. It's not fair to just show him when he's, like, already screwed over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we should have saw that progression.
It's obnoxious, but I think they'll balance it out somehow.
We'll see. But anyways, let's go to Tyrion and Varys. And they pretty much think that the Unsullied will face a really hard situation at Casterly Rock. And Tyrion says that many men will die. And he said that his father also said that it's impregnable. So he goes on a speech saying that he carved a thing in to sneak woman in through the rocks under Casterly Rock. We get a montage of what should have happened, of them climbing. I've figured it out. It actually is what should have happened. Of them climbing the walls and them getting defeated versus what actually happened.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of strange. I feel like... this is another thing I'm going to hate on. All the hate comes at the end. I don't know why they wasted money on showing what didn't happen. I thought it was so stupid. Like, it was literally like, oh, my father said it was impregnable. The walls can't be breached, blah, blah, blah. So you see Unsullied climbing the walls, and it's not working out. Okay, and then they show them sneak in through underground, and then the fight works out, and they win. Like, The first half of that was unnecessary. Like, take away that, save the money, put it towards another action sequence, and give me more time with Bran because he's underdeveloped as fuck.
No, I see it a different way. I see that did happen. Those guys climbing the wall did die. But it was like, that was a part of the plan. You can't just sneak up. They only had like 15 guys sneak up. There's no way they would take a whole castle that way. And that's why they let them in through the gates.
I don't know. Why would they take the ladders, though?
Because they had to make it look like a full siege in order to get everyone to the walls. In order to distract them from coming up through the sewers.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right, because they have all the ships there. Like, they know they're under siege.
Yeah, so they would be pouring all their archers and their fighters to the walls and the ladders to focus in on those guys, while a small contingent of people climbing through the sewers. I forget, there's actually a real battle in France. I think there was like a boy who snuck up through the sewers, the latrine like holes, and he took the whole castle. Like he came up and unlocked the door for everybody. So he took that from real life. Yeah,
but they end up taking over the castle, and Tyrion says something that I really like. It calls back to his dad saying that Casterly Rock is impregnable. And then Tyrion quotes a good friend of his, Bran, saying, "Give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate the bitch." And Bran said that in season 1.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool callback. And Grey Worm ends up realizing that there should be more Lannisters, and there isn't, and he sees Euron flanking them and taking out all their ships.
Yeah.
So that got me thinking right now Casterly Rock's going to remain empty. The Unsullied are going to start marching back because they can't stay there because Jaime cleared the resources. At the end of this, who do you think will take Casterly Rock?
At the end of everything?
Yeah.
If Tyrion survives, it's his, I think.
Really? See,
yeah.
I think neither Jaime nor Cersei can hold Casterly Rock because even if Daenerys makes a pact with them, they're too dangerous for her to put in charge of Casterly Rock.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant like the end of everything.
No, yeah, no, good, no, yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, I'm having speech problems. That's what I mean. But I'm trying to justify why it can't be any Lannisters. I feel like Tyrion, he's the candidate who takes over the throne. You know what I mean? He seems like a guy who puts Westeros back together. He doesn't just take over one side. You know what I mean?
But I think it would just be willed to him. But I think, you think he'll be the king? Or do you think he'll be the hand of the king of whoever's sitting on the Iron Throne at the end?
Well, if Tyrion is hand of the king, then he can't be Lord of Casterly Rock. And if he's the king, he can't be Lord of the Casterly Rock. And I think Tyrion is going to have a more important role than just Warden of Casterly Rock kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I think it would be so cool. This is so fan-fiction-y. But I think Bronn is one of those characters that's going to live through everything. And he started from nothing. And it's going to create a whole new house under Bronn. And Tyrion's going to give him Casterly Rock or something like that.
That'd be pretty cool.
It's like total bullshit. But I just think it would be a cool thing, because like you see you literally, it would be a story of Game of Thrones would have a story of Bronn in there, which is how his house came into form.
Yeah.
And he started
I don't even think that Tyrion would want Casterly Rock in the end.
Yeah.
He's moved on from being he almost wants to get away from being a Lannister in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they totally abandoned him.
Yeah. But, speaking of the Lannisters, Jaime, Bronn, Randall, and Dick and Tarly reach Highgarden. They end up taking out all the Tarly men. They load gold and food, etc. to help pay back the Iron Bank and for their armies. Jaime ends up visiting Lady Olenna, and they have kind of a conversation. Main things to pull from this is that Jaime explains his strategy. They ended up clearing out Casterly Rock to let it be taken, because it was pretty much valueless and it had no gold to mine anyway. And the interesting part is that Jaime said that he learned this from Robb Stark because he did that to him. Mm-hmm. So they said that there were always lessons in failures. And Olenna pretty much talks shit about Cersei, saying how terrible she is and that she's a disease. And that she should cut her out. Which is funny because that's what Cersei said about Tyrion to Jaime.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, she drinks the poison. She dies a peaceful death, but before she does, she admits that she killed Joffrey. So, what do you think Jaime will do with that information?
I think he's keeping it to himself.
Yeah? Why is that?
I just think, like, well, you know what? I think he'll keep it to himself for now. I don't think he's running back to Cersei to say this. But I think that there'll be a conversation. And we've already seen his hesitance to be loyal to her now. That he's sort of moving on and away from Cersei. And we're going to see that wedge grow ever wider as this season goes into wherever they end up.
Yeah.
And I think that it will be something he'll mention later to say, like, you had it wrong about Tyrion. Like, he didn't kill our son.
Yeah, I agree.
You know
like,
what I mean?
he doesn't have to say anything right now because it's over. Like, the only thing he
right now it's another wearing down of his loyalty to Cersei. Like, yeah. Oh fuck, like, we had it wrong. Our brother didn't try and kill our son.
Yeah, and the whole thing with that is that the whole situation's over now. If Jaime were to tell Cersei that Olenna killed their son, Cersei's going to be furious that Jaime had the idea of just poisoning her and it'll become this whole thing. But I think it'll play a big role because, yeah, Cersei does blame Tyrion for killing her son.
Yeah,
so
and Sansa.
That's important information, and if Jaime did tell her, I wonder how she would feel. Like, she obviously still hates Tyrion, but I just wonder how that would affect the way she feels.
Or it could be like, he could say to her enthusiastically, like, oh, I got this information. And she's like, it doesn't change anything. And he's like, yes, it does, but for her it doesn't. Because she's hell-bent on winning this war.
Yeah, true.
And then that becomes a point of, like, well, you're not thinking this through logically. Like, we're now killing innocent, like, we're going after innocent people in a sense.
Yeah. It's
interesting. It's a really cool dynamic because it's like, I know Jaime's gonna be the one to fucking kill her. Like, it just is happening. That's so happening. Because George R.R. Martin's not gonna give us someone else killing her. It has to be this poetic end to Cersei.
Yeah, it seems like it would be wrapped up in a nice bow.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know, like, in my eyes, or in my head, I should say, I just picture, like, the castle burning around them, and he's just like, you did this to us. And he's just like, I guess we're going down together. But he's just so enraged with her that he chokes her out, and they both die together.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about this episode?
Oh, it was just a great episode.
Yeah, love the episode. I hope it stays on, like, a good direction. I don't want them to get too shallow. You know what I mean? I don't want it to seem like a movie. I don't want it to seem like fan fiction. And I definitely don't want my fan fiction predictions to sound better than this show. So I'm nervous that they might go down like a cheesy path.
I don't know, man. They've been so consistent with awesome things. So what would make you think that?
I just feel like right now Varys and Littlefinger are being like, Varys doesn't know what the fuck's going on. He's not really getting whispers. He's not clever. He's just supporting Daenerys. Littlefinger's just standing around kissing Sansa's ass, giving her advice, not really doing anything constructive. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like all the characters that involved in-depth writing are just shells of who they were. And I'm afraid it's going to get worse. And Sam came back literally being a shell of who he was. And, like, they say that he just sees fragments because it takes away the depth or the story that could have happened between him, Littlefinger, and the Starks and that whole thing. So, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think they're trying to balance the scales. It's just like the comment from episode 1 about the prince that was promised. They're trying to kind of cover their tracks. Because I would say the grand majority of people that watch the show don't really go deep into the lore and the theories. I think, actually, I shouldn't say a minority. There is a lot of people that do that. But they're trying to make it as a surprise as to everybody. You know what I mean? Just because people are looking into it doesn't mean that the show has its own plans. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm wondering. I'm really wondering who's gonna oust Littlefinger.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because who's alive that would know what he did?
No idea.
And that's the thing. Like it's to me, it just seems so obvious that it has to be Bran to say like, this is what you did.
But yeah, I know, but I can't picture him saying anything normal now. Like, he's so fucked. I don't even know.
Yeah, that's what I mean though. That's why I'm thinking that it's balancing the scale. Like, he just seems so fucked up and unreliable right now that nobody would trust what he says. He would just say some spooky shit that sounded like a really, really good psychic. You know what I mean? And she's just like, that was really creepy that you said that to me. Thanks for that. And there's no proof. Like, someone could have told him that story, right? And even though it hits close to home, it's just so, he's just so up in the air, and I think they did that on purpose.
I don't know. I just think I'm irritated with Bran because you can't change a character that much and then turn him back and be like, oh, he found himself again, he's fine. Like, he has to stay the way he is now, and I feel like they did it in such a wrong way. And if they went back on it and they said that, oh, he came to terms with this and the pieces are no longer pieces, they're all together and he's fine now, he's Bran again, I'd be even more pissed, because it's just writing for writing's sake. You know what I mean? Like, it's like surprise for surprise sake. It's just
no, I don't have any, like, I don't have any notion that he's coming back as like Bran from season 6, like Apprentice Bran. He's definitely gonna be a weirdo, but I think he's gonna be able to articulate more once he gets settled, and he'll be able to explain or convey things a lot more clearly. He's gonna be a weirdo, and they're gonna like the same reaction to everything that he says, but maybe he'll select the things to say properly and appropriate things.
Oh no, God, I hope so. Jesus. But that's all I have to say. Are you good?
Yeah, that's it for me. I can't wait for the next one though.
But that's it, everybody. Please stay tuned for the live stream coming up, as well as the episode preview, and then we'll be back for a reaction and breakdown for episode 4. See you later, guys.
See ya.